Snow covered the empty road in thick white layers as Tom and Mary walked slowly toward the frozen research base that stood far ahead like a dark shadow against the grey sky. Their shoes were worn out and their coats were thin, but they kept walking because they had nowhere else to go. The town behind them had closed its doors to them, and even their own family had stopped caring about their calls and letters. They were not angry anymore because anger needed strength, and they no longer had much strength left. All they had was each other and the hope that something inside the abandoned base could save them. The base was once a busy place full of people and bright lights, but now it was silent and cold like a forgotten grave. Tom had worked there long ago when he was younger and stronger, and he still remembered the long halls, the metal doors, and the strange rules that everyone followed without asking questions. There was one place in the base that always felt different from the rest, and that place was the sealed stone room. No one was allowed to go near it, and even the guards spoke about it in low voices as if it could hear them. Mary stayed close to Tom as they reached the tall metal door of the base. The wind howled behind them and pushed snow against their backs as if the world was trying to stop them from going inside. Tom used all his strength to pull the heavy door open, and when it finally moved, cold air rushed out and wrapped around them like icy hands. The air inside smelled old and dry, and it felt like time itself had stopped there. They stepped inside slowly, and the door closed behind them with a deep sound that echoed through the empty building. The hall in front of them was dark and long, with broken lights hanging from the ceiling and thick frost covering the walls. Every step they took made a soft sound that seemed too loud in the quiet place. Mary looked around with wide eyes, and her heart felt heavy because the base felt alive in a strange way, like it was watching them. They found a small room with old chairs and a dusty table, and they sat down to rest. Tom tried to warm his hands by rubbing them together while Mary wrapped her arms around herself. She told him that this place felt like it was hiding something, and Tom knew she was right. He remembered stories from years ago about secret work and hidden rooms and things that were never written down in any report. Tom slowly stood up and told Mary that there was one room deep inside the base that no one ever talked about. He said that it had a stone door and no signs, and that even the people in charge avoided it. He did not know what was inside, but he believed that it was important. Mary listened to him, and her heart beat faster because she felt that whatever was behind that door could change everything for them. They began to walk again, moving deeper into the base. The halls became narrower and colder as they went on. Ice covered the floor and made every step hard and slow. Old signs hung crooked on the walls, and wires dangled from the ceiling like frozen vines. The base looked like it had been left in a hurry, as if everyone had run away and never came back. As they walked, Tom remembered the day the base had closed. There had been loud sounds and bright lights, and then sudden silence. People were told to leave and never return. No one was ever given a clear reason, and after that day the place was locked and forgotten by the world. But the sealed stone room had remained inside, untouched and silent, waiting for someone to find it. Mary began to feel tired, but she did not stop because she knew they had to keep going. Their old life was gone, and this frozen place was now their only chance. She held Tom's hand, and together they moved forward step by step through the cold and the dark. After a long time they reached a heavy stone door at the end of a narrow hall. It was tall and thick and covered in ice. There were no words or numbers on it, and it looked older than the rest of the base. Tom felt his heart beat faster as he stood in front of it. This was the sealed room he remembered. Mary looked at the door and felt both fear and hope. She asked Tom if he was sure about this, and he said that he was sure that they had nothing else left. With slow, careful hands he pushed against the stone door, and to their surprise it began to move with a deep sound. Ice fell from it and hit the floor as the door slowly opened. Inside, the room was not dark like the rest of the base. A soft light filled the space and made everything inside shine. There were metal boxes stacked along the walls and screens that still glowed with quiet light. The air inside felt warmer and cleaner, as if the room had been protected from the cold all these years. Tom and Mary stepped inside in silence. They did not know what they would find, but they could feel that something very important was hidden there. Their hearts were full of wonder and fear as they looked around at the strange and bright room that had been locked away from the world. What they did not know yet was that this sealed stone room held a secret worth more than anyone could imagine, and their lives were about to change forever. Tom and Mary stood still inside the sealed stone room as the heavy door slowly closed behind them with a deep sound that echoed through the quiet base. The warm light inside the room felt strange after the cold halls outside. The walls were smooth and clean, and thick glass screens glowed softly as if someone had left them on only a few moments ago. The air felt safe and calm, and it made both of them feel like they had stepped into a different world. Mary took a slow step forward and looked around with wide eyes. There were metal shelves filled with small boxes and large cases stacked in neat rows. Some of them had clear sides, and inside were shining bars and bright coins that reflected the light. Tom felt his breath stop as he realized what he was looking at. This was not just old research equipment. This was a hidden store of great value. Tom walked closer and touched one of the metal cases. It was cold and heavy and solid. He slowly opened it, and inside were rows of gold bars, all clean and bright like they had just been made. Mary covered her mouth with her hand as her eyes filled with tears. They had spent years struggling to survive, and now they were standing in a room filled with more wealth than they had ever seen in their lives. They did not know how much was there, but Tom knew it was enough to change everything. He remembered hearing a long time ago that the base had been used to protect important things during times of trouble. It seemed that this room had been built to hide something very valuable from the world, and no one had ever come back to claim it. Mary sat down slowly on a small chair because her legs felt weak. She looked around the room and thought about the cold nights they had spent hungry and afraid. All of that pain felt very far away now, but she also felt scared because such a big secret could bring danger as well as hope. Tom began to explore the room carefully. He found old screens that showed numbers and records. One screen listed the total value stored inside, and the number was so large that he could not believe it. The amount was equal to 280 million in money. His hands shook as he read it because he had never seen a number that big before. Mary asked him what it meant, and he told her that it meant they had found something that could give them safety and peace for the rest of their lives. But he also said that it meant they had to be careful because someone might still be looking for this hidden room. They searched the room for hours, finding more cases filled with coins, papers, and bars. Everything was perfectly kept, as if time had stopped for it. It felt like the room had been waiting for them to arrive. As they worked, Mary began to smile for the first time in many months. She talked about getting a warm home and fresh food and clean clothes. She talked about helping others who were forgotten like them. Tom listened and felt hope grow in his heart again. But deep inside the base, something else was moving. Old systems that had been silent for years had been triggered by the opening of the sealed room. A quiet signal was sent out into the cold night, letting someone far away know that the room was no longer closed. Tom did not know this yet, but danger was slowly coming closer. After resting for a while, they decided to pack a few small cases with them. They could not carry everything at once, but they needed proof that what they had found was real. They chose the smallest and lightest boxes and put them into an old cart they found in the base. Mary looked back at the glowing room before they left. She felt like she was walking away from a dream, but she knew they would come back. This place was now their secret and their future. They pushed the cart back through the cold halls, moving carefully and quietly. Every sound made their hearts jump because they did not want anyone to know they were there. The base was still empty, but the feeling of being watched had grown stronger. When they reached the control room again, they stopped to rest. Tom looked at the old monitors and noticed one small light blinking. It had not been on before. He did not understand what it meant, but it made him uneasy. Mary tried to calm him and said that everything would be fine. They had waited so long for a chance like this, and now it was finally here. But outside in the dark, snowy world, something was coming toward the frozen base, drawn by a signal that had been silent for many years. The secret of the sealed stone room was no longer safe. Tom and Mary stayed in the control room longer than they planned because both of them felt tired and confused by everything that had happened. The blinking light on the old monitor kept flashing in a slow, steady way, and it made Tom feel uneasy. He did not know much about the old systems, but he knew that something had been turned on when the sealed stone room was opened. The base had been asleep for many years, and now it was slowly waking up. Mary sat close to Tom and held his hand. She told him that even if something strange was happening, they had already come too far to turn back. They had found a future in that hidden room, and they would not let fear take it away. Tom nodded, but he still looked at the blinking light with worry. Outside the base, the snow continued to fall and the sky grew darker as night slowly arrived. Far away, a small group of people had received the signal from the base. They were not sure what it meant, but they knew that the sealed room was no longer locked. They had waited for this moment for many years because they believed that what was hidden there belonged to them. Back inside the base, Tom and Mary decided to go back to the sealed room to take more of the small cases. They knew they had to work fast before the cold became too strong and before anyone else could arrive. They pushed the old cart through the quiet halls once again. The sound of the wheels echoed softly and made the empty base feel even more lonely. When they reached the stone door, it was already open just a little. Tom felt a chill run through him because he was sure they had closed it when they left. Mary looked at him with fear in her eyes. Something had changed while they were gone. They slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. The warm light was still glowing and the cases were still there, but something felt wrong. A small screen on the wall was flashing and showing lines of moving text that Tom could not understand. The room was no longer as quiet and safe as before. Mary walked to the shelves and checked the cases. Everything was still in place, but she felt like the room was warning them. Tom told her that they needed to take what they could and leave as soon as possible. They filled the cart with more small cases and wrapped them in old cloth to keep them safe. Their hands moved fast, but their hearts were heavy. The feeling of being watched was stronger now, and every small sound made them turn around. As they were about to leave the room, they heard a distant sound coming from the halls. It was a low, steady noise like footsteps or wheels moving across the frozen floor. Tom froze and Mary held her breath. Someone was inside the base. They quietly pushed the cart toward the door and moved as slowly as they could. The sound grew closer and they could tell that more than one person was walking. The base was no longer empty. Tom and Mary hid behind a row of old machines and waited. Through a small gap they saw shadows moving across the hall. A group of people dressed in dark coats and carrying lights walked past the sealed room. They were looking around as if they were searching for something very important. Mary whispered that these people must be the ones who knew about the hidden room. Tom nodded and told her that they had to stay hidden until it was safe. The group stopped near the stone door and one of them touched the wall. He spoke quietly to the others and pointed toward the sealed room. They were very close now. Tom felt his heart pounding in his chest. If these people found the cases they had taken, it would all be over. Mary squeezed his hand and tried to stay calm. After a long moment, the group moved on down the hall. They did not enter the room, but they were clearly looking for it. Tom and Mary waited until the sound of their steps faded away. When it was quiet again, they slowly came out from hiding. They knew they could not stay in the base much longer. The secret was no longer theirs alone. They pushed the cart back toward the exit of the base, moving as fast and as quietly as they could. Every corner they turned made them fear they would see the group again. When they reached the main door, Tom looked back one last time at the dark halls. He knew that their simple life was gone forever and that what they had found would change everything. Outside the snow was still falling, but it felt less cold now because they were filled with new hope and new danger at the same time. They did not know what the future would bring, but they knew one thing for sure: they would not let anyone take away the chance they had been given. Tom and Mary walked away from the frozen research base with the small cart moving slowly behind them. Snow fell gently around them and covered their footprints as if the world was trying to hide where they had been. Their hands were cold, but their hearts were full of strange mixed feelings. They had found something that could change their lives forever, but they also knew that they were no longer safe. The base behind them was no longer silent because other people were now inside looking for the same secret. They followed the long road toward the town. The sky was still dark, but a pale light was starting to rise in the distance. Tom kept looking behind them to make sure no one was following. Mary held the handle of the cart and whispered that they had to keep moving no matter how tired they felt. Every step felt heavy, but hope pushed them forward. When they reached the edge of the town, the snow was thinner and the buildings were closer together. The streets were quiet because most people were still sleeping. Tom and Mary found a small empty building where they could rest for a short time. They closed the door and sat down on the cold floor next to the cart. Their bodies were tired, but their minds were awake with thoughts of what they would do next. Mary spoke about finding a safe place and getting help to move the cases without drawing attention. Tom agreed and said they had to be careful. The people who came to the base would not give up easily. They had waited many years for that hidden room and they would not stop now. As the morning light grew stronger, Tom and Mary decided to take only one small case with them and hide the rest. They found a quiet spot in the building and covered the cart with old cloth and broken wood. It was not perfect, but it was better than nothing. They took the small case and walked through the town like normal people going about their day. Inside the case was enough value to help them start a new life if they used it wisely. They did not want to be noticed or asked questions, so they kept their heads down and moved slowly. They found a kind shop owner who agreed to give them food and warm clothes in exchange for some of the coins from the case. The man did not ask where they came from, and Tom and Mary were grateful for that. For the first time in a long while they felt warm and full. Later they went to a small office where they could get advice on how to protect what they had found. They spoke carefully and did not tell the full story. They only said that they had found something valuable and needed help to keep it safe. The people there listened and offered ways to store it and use it without danger. While Tom and Mary were in town, the group from the base was searching. They had found signs that someone had been there before them, and they were not happy. They spread out into the area trying to find who had taken part of the hidden treasure. But Tom and Mary were careful. They stayed in small quiet places and only moved when they needed to. They slowly used the small case to build a safe and simple life. They found a warm place to stay and good food to eat. They did not live in luxury because they did not want to be noticed. Days turned into weeks and the danger slowly faded. The people who came to the base did not find them, and after some time they left the area. The sealed stone room still held most of the treasure, but Tom and Mary had taken enough to live in peace. One cold morning they returned to the old building where they had hidden the cart. It was still there just as they had left it. They smiled because it felt like a small victory. They took another case and once again used it carefully. They helped people who were in need, and they also kept some for their own future. They did not forget the pain of being left alone, and they did not want others to feel that same pain. Tom and Mary never returned to the frozen base. They knew that place was filled with danger and memories that could bring trouble. They chose a quiet, simple life instead. Years later they were living in a small warm home in a peaceful place. They had friends and enough food, and they felt safe. Sometimes they would talk about the day they walked into the frozen base and found the sealed stone room. It felt like a dream, but it had given them a new life. They were no longer forgotten or alone. They had found hope in the coldest place and carried it with them into a warmer future.